What is happening? So I thought it would be really good to share my opinion on what makes a good Led Zeppelin II press. There are lots of Led Zeppelin II presses out in the wild, and for many records you can just buy, typically you can buy an older, nice condition vintage record, and it's probably going to sound good. Um, Over the years of collecting records, I think there is an exception to that rule. There's actually a lot of times exceptions to that rule. Led Zeppelin II is definitely an exception where they all don't sound the same. There's been, last I checked, quite a lot of different presses. There's a lot of presses out there. A lot of them sound like turds, and only a few of them sound really good. So I thought I would just create this to maybe help people that are maybe looking for a Led Zeppelin II press and want to know which one to look for. So let me start off with the press that, kind of my first press. And I've had, I have 4 here, but I've had more. I've definitely acquired more, but sold them throughout time. But this is a 1975 repress, and it has a dull cover. Pretty common that most of them, at least the ones that I have seen, have sort of a dull cover with no sheen. And this sounds bad. I wouldn't go as far to say it sounds like an 8-track bad, but it's just lacking in everything. It sounds like there's a quilt thrown over your speakers. The highs are not very good, the lows are not very good, the mids are not very good. It's not hi-fi, it's just a crummy press. And my experience have been that most, if you go to the store, you see a Led Zeppelin II press, most are gonna sound something like this, which is not very good. If I take the record out, and of course, all these are US presses, we're only talking about US here. I see numbers on the runouts, and I see AT on one side, and I see AT on the other side. Really nothing much to say there, but your typical pressing of Led Zeppelin II, from my experience, is going to sound pretty bad, and honestly, it's not even really worth listening to. Kind of that level of badness. This is a 1977 remaster. This was the first time that it was remastered by George GP, and this sounds pretty solid. This is a solid record. Actually, when I got this record, I decided that it was probably worth stopping to look for an RL press. And everybody knows what an RL press is, so I won't explain that. This made me stop looking. I was really happy to listen to this. The bass was good, the highs were good. It was more commanding. It sounded like Led Zeppelin, like it sounded like they were almost in the room. This is a really good sounding press. If you take a look at the cover, it has sheen to it. So it's a little bit different. It's not that dull, chalky look. There's just a little bit of sheen to it. And this is what you want to look out for when you're looking for a Led Zeppelin II press. These are not hard to find. They're not even priced any higher than anyone else or any other press. But what you want to look for is an AT, the at symbol A, the at symbol T, GP. You want to see that on both sides. So I can see it right here, it's on both sides. Mine also says PR. PR on both sides. This is your common, relatively easy press to find in the wild. And if you don't want to expend a lot of time or a lot of money, this ATGP press is what you want. Again, this was the first time it was remastered, and it was essentially fixed. I would consider this a fixed, like it's solved. There's nothing sonically going on that's offensive. It just sounds pretty solid. It sounds good. This would be the press that I would recommend for vintage buyers that just want a good sounding vintage press that they don't have to spend $200, $300 on for the RL press. Speaking of the RL press, Got it right here. So I recently acquired this. I wasn't really looking for it. I saw Led Zeppelin II at the store. I took a look at the runout and I saw our RL on both sides. So I snatched it really quick. Sometimes you get lucky. The RL press should have a chalky, non-sheen cover. And I believe they won't ever have that gold award that's on the top. So it should look just like this, kind of plain and basic. So I listened to the RL press last night. And honestly, when I went into it, again, I was really happy with the ATGP press. How much better could it really sound? And yeah, it sounds better. It actually sounds better. The low end is more thunderous. It feels like Led Zeppelin was brought more into the room. They're more in the room now. They're filling up more of the spatial sound. Better highs, like the cymbals are just right in your face. It's really a crazy sounding good record. I can't really stress enough that the bass on this thing is cranked up. And it's not cranked up to a level where it's wrong, but it's just really commanding. I can see how maybe a crappy turntable in the past, this could have caused some skips. But on decent quality stuff these days, this is going to be just fine. And it is a superb pressing. Is it better than the ATGP press? Yeah, it's better. But that doesn't mean that the ATG press is a bad press. It's still a solid press. I would still recommend looking out for the ATGP press. I can still listen to the ATGP press just fine, and it still sounds great. It sounds live, there's good bass, there's good treble. It's a solid sounding press. Next one, we got your modern remaster. So you can tell that these are the remaster because there's always this kind of pasted on barcode on the top. Don't know why they did that, but at least it's easy to spot. How does this sound? It sounds like a CD. I mean, not to downplay CDs. I like listening to CDs too. But it's not emotionally involving, it's flat. Everything's kind of on the same line and there's no kind of emotion, there's no command to it. It's just sonically it's fine, but it's just not involving. It's not like the RL press. Sorry, this was the R. It's not like the RL press that's just going to be full of depth and full of punch. It's not as good as the GP press that also has more depth, that sounds pretty good, and it's more involving to listen to. This is just kind of like putting on a CD on your record player. It's not bad. I think it's actually mixed pretty well. Sounds good, doesn't offend, but it's not really, in my opinion, what a good record should sound like. Okay, so what do I recommend? Well, obviously the RL is going to be the best press, but it's hard to obtain. It might take you years to find, and you might have to take out a mortgage to buy one. My opinion is it's great to have. It sounds really good, but you don't need an RL press to really listen to Led Zeppelin II. So in the case that you can obtain one, if you don't get lucky like I did, the ATGP 77 repress is going to make you happy. Post in the comments below if you don't agree and if you actually have this press, but this is a solid press. It's going to sound good. I can't imagine anybody thinking it doesn't sound good. It's going to blow the modern repress out of the water. It's going to absolutely blow almost every pressing that existed prior, aside from the RL press. It's going to blow this completely out of the water. It's a solid, easy to obtain press. You can probably get it for anywhere from 15 to 22 bucks, $25 perhaps, depending on the condition. This is really the one that any reasonable, or within reason, this one's the one to get because you can get it. It's obtainable. It's affordable. Would I ever recommend the digital press? Yeah, I could recommend it to somebody that doesn't really care about whether the source is analog or digital, or to somebody that doesn't want to spend a lot of time looking, going to stores, spending months digging through collections to try to find a really good older press. I actually think this is a pretty decent press, or a good option. This is a good option for somebody that just wants to hear Led Zeppelin II and not be offended by it. I think this is probably what I would recommend to somebody like that. All right, hopefully with these four, I was able to help out, maybe help you guys know what to look for. If you know of any other presses that I haven't mentioned, please feel free to post in the comments. I think it's always good to help out others. When I started to buy Led Zeppelin II, I had no idea that there were such variations in the older presses. So I kind of wish I knew this information starting out so I know what to buy and what to avoid. But anyways, hopefully this was helpful. See you guys later.